Hello to Talking Orangutans, guys. This is the first original podcast going to tell you what exactly this podcast is about. I was supposed to do it about 3 months ago. I'm doing it now. My name is Merve. I'm a guy that was born and raised in Stellenbosch. Got a family that's basically born and raised in Stellenbosch from father, grandfather. I come from a very traditional Afrikaans background. And so does my parents. I think I have a grandmother coming from the Free State side. Graduated in matric 2003 at Polrus Gymnasium. Went to Stellenbosch University. Did human resource management there. Graduated in 2008. Since high school, I've been in the restaurant industry. That got me overseas on a migrant or highly skilled visa in the United Kingdom from 2008 to 2012, where I did a variety of nightclubs, private members clubs, restaurants, fine dining, upmarket stuff. Managed a few places in Stellenbosch and also met my wife, Polish lady called Anya in London. We lived here and then we moved to Warsaw in Poland. And moved back to South Africa in 2014 for the last few months of my brother's life. He struggled with cancer for many years and then unfortunately passed away in 2014. During that time, I listened to a lot of podcasts. And I'm a massive Joe Rogan fan, so anyone that listens to this and they say, this seems like the guy's copying Joe Rogan. Yes, I am. I love it. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I don't always meet people in person that can educate me on some of the topics that I'm dealing with, i.e. immigration, dating a lady from another country, how to deal with a family member busy dying. And podcasts help me with that aspect. Same with me starting my own business. A lot of different podcasts help me to gauge what is necessary at a variety of times during business. Obviously, it's cool to meet people in real life and have those type of discussions, and I do, but podcast fills a massive part for me about education and spirituality. So Joe Rogan, that's my guy. The other one that I really listen to is called Brendan Schaub, which is from The Fighter and the Kid, with Brian Callen, and he's got his own one called Below the Belt. It used to be the Big Brown Breakdown. Ex-UFC fighter. Check it out, also amazing. I just think the guy's a cool dude. And he's a bit of a weirdo because he likes fashion, but he used to be a fighter and he's just so cool and open about it. The other one that I listen to a lot is called the Count, Michael Bisping. Can't remember his one, but check out Michael Bisping. That's really cool, ex-UFC fighter. Then there's a guy called Theo Von that does This Past Weekend. Listen to a lot of his stuff. And then there's a guy called Jocko Willink, which I also dig his stuff. So that gave me an idea of what I like. I used to be in bands, heavy metal, but also did a variety of African stuff, jazz, blues. And I realized from a young age that if you put your heart to something, if you put your mind to something, you can actually do it. Like you go from being a garage band to playing live shows. And I started my own business a few years ago and I realized that literally anything you want to do, you can do. Doesn't mean you're going to be successful, doesn't mean you're going to be great at it, but you can do it. And I used to do a lot of hobbies, physical hobbies such as playing rugby, playing football, soccer, downhill mountain biking, trail building, cutting trees down, jogging, swimming, whatever. And due to a lot of injuries, I'm not physically capable of doing a lot of these hobbies. So I thought what would be awesome is starting a podcast. I'm not spending any money on new bicycle shocks or chains. I might as well invest it in podcast equipment. And I spoke to a few people and I've launched my own podcast. Now the idea of the podcast is to get people on the show who I find interesting. People who are articulate, that is actually, they've got an area of specialties or expertise and I can learn from it. So if I get 1 or 2 views on YouTube, that's awesome. I don't care. This is for me to feel better about my life, enriching my outlook on life, gaining a new perspective. and just feeling like I have fulfillment. Because England taught me, or London taught me, that I can have thousands of pounds and earn more money than I can spend because I was working too much. But I wasn't really happy. I was having a fantastic job, fairly glamorous, very good pay, and extremely unhealthy with mind, body, and soul. And moving to Warsaw in Poland, I became a teacher of adult English, or teaching English to adults, and I loved it. I never experienced stress for about 2 years due to just having a job that doesn't cause stress. And I realized, like, I'm earning a tenth of what I used to, but when you look at quality of life and the way I feel, the way I think about life, it's completely different. So the podcast is there for me to just educate myself, enrich myself, and move myself further. Now, if other people listen to this and they find something helpful, awesome. If you don't, cool. I am scared that some people are going to call me a racist, or they're going to say I'm an arsehole, or just a general dickhead. Fair enough, go for it. I'm sure that if you take anything, you can construe it in any way you want. I would love to be honest, open-minded, and willing to just discuss anything that comes my way. And I'll try to do that. You'll notice from the first podcast with Marvin, very nervous talking about race. And even with the discussion with other people, I am quite tentative to go there. But I would love to talk about race, because I grew up in old South Africa, I grew up in the new South Africa, and there's political tensions and racial tensions in both nations, the Rainbow Nation and the Apartheid Nation. So I think education about different cultures, which I have a lot. I grew up with people from Senegal, so I got raised with a bit of Wolof, a bit of French, and the Muslim culture. And that helped me to integrate easier with people that speak Xhosa. So predominantly here in the Western Cape, we have Xhosa people. Fairly similar to Zulu people, but there are certain differences. And then with my company, I train a lot of Malawians and Zimbabweans. So I've learned a lot about their cultures. And so too with the Congolese culture, because a lot of my students are from that side. So I hope that some of the podcasts will touch on these topics, because white middle class or just upper class, they don't have an idea of what these cultures are about. For example, how are you? Before just saying how are you on the telephone before identifying who you are. That is part of the black culture. You always ask people how they're doing, and then you'll say, I am this. And those are small things that a lot of people don't know. Then you'll see from the podcast that's happened so far, Dr. Seth talking about nutrition, healthy lifestyle. Got Marvin on talking about acting and directing and film. We got Dian Vessels on talking about graphic design, but a lot of that went into how to manage your own body, mind, spirit, physical sides, and how to be healthy. We had Marcus on. Obviously, I'm in the restaurant industry or hospitality industry, so I find that fascinating. But there are also a lot of people that I listen to their stories, and that helped me a lot to start my business. And Marcus was one of those. So anything that I find inspiring, they're coming on. You know, if I can get people from military, I don't know, I'm getting Jean that runs Tune Studio in Stellenbosch, where I do a lot of my podcasts. A blind guy that's a professional drummer that runs his own studio. It's fascinating stories. I know a lady that's a lesbian, which obviously it's a difficult thing growing up in South Africa, which is fairly conservative, being yourself or having your own sexuality, especially if religion comes into play. There are certain religions that sometimes frown upon being gay. So how do you become yourself freely and disassociate yourself from judgment and be happy? You know, white people adopting black kids, fascinating, because the way I grew up, that's very abnormal. Even today, that's still abnormal. And my experiences, I worked in Soho in London, and I got introduced to the gay culture, and I experienced guys that could be themselves. I'm laughing because it's obviously like experience in the gay culture. I didn't get involved with the guys, but it's fascinating to see how people can be different, and it's all about just being happy, being yourself, no judgment. We can be full of shit when we look at certain ideologies and judge different ideologies. We can do that with religion. We can do that with anything, you know, like classic example, when I grew up, the bodyboarders judged the surfers. It's like, fuck guys, you're all in the ocean, you all want to catch waves, why can't we just all be mates? The soccer guys judging the rugby guys. It's like, fuck, we're just so full of shit. I find the human as a species fascinating, frustrating. If you look at how we've been conditioned in certain cultures and upbringings, and it contributes to either healthy or unhealthy behavior, it is just crazy and it's ridiculous. And a lot of the problems that you see around the world, I sometimes feel that it can be solved if we just actually cared about people. Like, for me, a big thing is if I look at inequality, super rich people and super poor people. And I'm just a little bit more aware of it because my business is trying to take people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And I say it because that's the politically correct term, but I take people from shacks and townships and try to make them sustainably employed. And I see the way they live, and it's sometimes heartbreaking. And then I see a lot of times how rich people live. And I'm like, that's obviously cool, but it's completely oblivious to people that live 5 kilometers down the road. And I struggle with that because how can one group have such a great life and not care about another group? But there are two sides to every story, possibly more if there's more people involved. And I understand all the sides. And I'll look at those stuff and I'll try to make peace with it. And that's basically what the podcast is about. I hope people will enjoy this. I don't know how long this will go on. Financially, this is a hobby. I'm not making any money, but the more shares, the more subscribers I get, the more money I'll make, or actually start making money. I'm sure that there's a few things that I'll set up that people can possibly donate money. If people want to start doing sponsorship ads, or they want to give me a t-shirt with their business logo on or whatever, we'll look at that when the time's right. Obviously, I need a certain amount of subscribers. What I would love from everyone that's listening to this video, please press subscribe. It just takes 5 seconds. And that's how people on YouTube make money. If there's likes on the videos, that's awesome. But the subscribe thing is what you want. If you could share it on your Facebook pages or social media, that's also how I get exposure. The more interesting people I get, the more interesting it will be for you. And if I get money, I can hopefully attract interesting people. And I can actually give them a proper thank you by buying them a gift, or at some point, hopefully giving them money. Possibly I can fly people down from Joburg, Durban. There's such a variety of people in South Africa that I would love to talk to. I'm lucky that I've traveled some parts of the world, so I'll have certain European people on, some American people on. And again, it's just different stories from different people with different backgrounds. And it's all there for me to get a better perspective and a healthier perspective on life. It's that whole thing of if you're too close to the project, you don't see the faults or sometimes even the good stuff. And I can get very obsessed about problems in South Africa. And I forget my day-to-day life. And if I just look at what's going on around the world, I'm lucky enough that I have family in Poland. I have a friend from Estonia. I've got a Russian friend, Australian, New Zealander, Canadian, American. And then you listen to stories from different countries and it puts everything into perspective. I know crime's a terrible thing in South Africa. But fairly recently, and I mean the last couple of years, I watched the O.J. Simpson documentary. There's the one that went on to the Oscars, and I think it either won or did well. And then there's the one with Cuba Gooding Jr. that played O.J. Simpson. And what's crazy is to see that New York 28 years ago were going through terrible riots. They were going through terrible racial stuff. And it was like war on the streets. And that's a first world country. we're a third world country and we're having certain problems. I'm not saying that's okay for everything to be the way it is. But that's what I mean with gaining perspective. I looked at the documentary with the IRA in Ireland and the bombings. Again, first world country, they were going through some terrible stuff in the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s. If you go to London Underground, there's no dustbins because people like to drop shit in those dustbins in the old days. Probably even now with ISIS and terrorism going on. So yeah, that's what I mean with getting perspective. My brother's death was a massive motivating factor for me in starting this podcast, and the reason I say that, my brother's death gave me the perspective or outlook on life that life is not forever. He died at 31. I've had a few friends, motorbike accidents, being electrocuted at work, suicides. Life is not forever, and my brother's death definitely made me realize that. Also, he made me realize that you can die with regrets, and he told me there's a lot of stuff I wish I did differently, or actually I just tried. And seeing somebody slowly dying, it's tough, but it's just tough to listen to them being sad about their life and knowing there's nothing else they can do. So after he died, I started going into extreme sports. That's a different story because I've got to fly to America for treatment because my neck's fucked, my back's fucked. But I would probably do it all over again. I just started living life differently. I started my own business. I'm doing the podcast, because again, life's not forever. I don't want to sit in a year or 2 years from now, I wish I did that. I wish I did that. And I've met so many people and I've been there. I wish I said something to the girl in the bar. I wish I had the guts to quit my job and actually go by myself. Or I wish I told my boss to go fuck himself. Or I wish I asked for the raise. Or I probably would have gotten the raise if I asked earlier. Or, I wish I got out of the relationship earlier because I saw the signs. I wish I was more comfortable to be with myself in my own skin alone. And I just don't want those type of things. It's not easy. Some people look at me and they're like, fuck dude, you're doing so many things. I was at the physiotherapist for an hour today. She's like, how the fuck do you get time for all of this? I'm like, well, I struggle to do nothing, which is a fantastic thing, but it's not wonderful because I burn out fairly easy because I've got so many projects going on. But again, I just have this thing of, fuck, I just want to live life. And sometimes it's not easy taking on these projects because a lot of them bring fear, uncertainty. But then obviously no risk, no reward. So hopefully there are some rewards at some point. But again, I'm not looking at the end result. I'm looking at the journey. And this podcast is about journey, or the journey. It would have been talking baboons, because baboon is a funny word for me. It's a funny way to refer to myself, my brothers, and whoever is behaving like an idiot. But unfortunately in South Africa, that is a very politically sensitive word. Now, my nickname at high school was Orang, which is Afrikaans for orangutan. So I thought, why not? Orangutans seem a little bit more sophisticated than baboons. I just thought it would be hilarious. It also shows that I don't take this too serious. If people think I sound Afrikaans when I talk, it's because I am Afrikaans. But I would like to think that my English is fairly good, seeing that I have quite a different amount of degrees or certificates, diplomas in English. And I chose by going overseas to still be a proud South African, and I never changed my accent, although I feel a lot of people do, or I see a lot of people do. I can speak a little bit of Polish. Can say a few things in Spanish. I try to learn a bit of French. It's slightly difficult. But again, what you see is what you get. I'll do certain solo videos. And yeah, guys, that's basically it. You're welcome to comment. If there's any questions you want me to ask anybody, if you think that you have cool people that wants to come onto the podcast and you think it's worth getting them on, hook me up on Facebook. I'll put the link into YouTube. I don't have Instagram and Twitter. It's literally YouTube. and Facebook at the moment. Just send me a DM or a direct message or a private message. Say to me, I've got this friend, I think he'll be awesome or she'll be awesome, and I'll get them on. We'll meet for coffee. I'll see if they have an interesting story. Any guys, wicked. Hope you enjoy the podcast.